Hello everyone, I'm Nachiket, a student of Ayurveda, just like you watching this. In this video, I've explored some topics from Indriyasthana that make our modern rational minds a bit skeptic. This topic has always intrigued me, and I believe it had that same effect on you also. Yes, I'm talking about Rishtalakshanas, or roughly translated as inauspicious happenings. Like, how in the world is a messenger coming to you on a donkey or a camel a sign that the patient is going to die? Does not make sense. I've tried to interpret or understand this concept with the help of a branch of science called psychoanalytics, using one of its core principle, that being synchronicity. When I first heard and learned about these lakshanas, I couldn't help but inquire further into the topic. Instead of just accepting it as Aptapadesha, I wanted to do more research on this, and I did just that. Now, let me first show you what lakshanas I'm referring to here. So, in Gomaya Churnyam Indriyadhyaya, there are multiple inauspicious signs that a physician observes. There is mentioning of those signs the physician observes while entering the home of patient. Like, for example, food made for a patient gets spoiled. The fire that's used for preparing new food gets extinguished, despite there being enough wood and also absence of wind. The things used by people living in the house are cracked, broken, or crushed. And also, the physician observes some auspicious things like ghee, seeds, and idols of deities departing from the house. All these signs observed by the physician, he later infers that the patient is certainly going to die. Now, naturally, our next question in our mind would be, is establishing a link between these two seemingly unrelated events even possible? With one event being um, the inference of the death of the patient, and another being the inauspicious signs being observed by the physician. How are these two possibly connected? Or are they even connected? Carl Gustav Jung, a Swiss psychotherapist who founded the School of Analytical Psychology, would answer yes to the previous slide. Him and a physicist named Wolfgang Pauli, who I'm sure you are aware of because we have all learned Pauli's exclusion principle while we were in our 12th standard. So they both came up with a concept called synchronicities, which is what we are going to discuss as we go further. So what are synchronicities? Let us first understand the definition. Synchronicities are meaningful but acausal connections between internal mental states and external physical events. Now I know that sounds a bit complicated, but let us try to understand it using an example, which is cited by Dr. Carl Jung himself. Uh, he talks about an anecdote uh, of his clinical experience with a patient. So the story goes like this. Dr. Jung was treating a lady who, like you and me, was a skeptic and found it very hard to believe that this phenomena like synchronicities even occur. Now, her rigid beliefs, due to her very rigid rationality, were making these sessions, the therapy sessions, very unproductive. So, what happened next was during that therapy session, that lady um, got reminded of a dream and she was talking to Dr. Jung about it. Uh, in that dream, she was given a costly piece of jewelry which was in the shape of a golden scarab. Golden scarab is a type of beetle. You can see it in the on the screen here. I've put it on the screen. Now, as she was describing the dream, a gentle tapping was heard at the window. Dr. Jung opened the window and caught a rose sapphire beetle, which you can see on the lower right corner on the screen. This beetle is the nearest European analog to the Egyptian scarab. He handed it to her, saying, "Here is your scarab." Now, what this experience did was it completely changed her perspective and punctured her rational skepticism, allowing the therapy sessions to proceed further. In this example, the internal state was her being rigid with her rationality and not accepting existence of synchronicities. This was making the therapy sessions unproductive. So the physical event that occurred, uh, which was connected to this, was the appearance of the rose chaffer while she was describing that dream that she had. This was one example. Now, before we move further, there is something that we need to understand, and that is causality. Causality is a relationship between cause and effect. And the most widely accepted version of causality is linear causality, which says that cause and effect exist in the form of a chain, just like this chain of dominoes I've shown here. One domino affecting the other, and that affecting the other, and so on. Now, if we compare it or draw an analogy with ecology, we can compare it to a food chain. But we know ecological systems are far more complex than that because animals consume more than just one type of food. So a food web would be more accurate than a food chain, right? Similarly, we can say that linear causality is flawed simply because it does not take into account the innumerable other causes that exist in a system. Linear causality is just an idealization of the mind that only exists in the abstract world of mathematics. It completely breaks down when applied to the complexities of the mind or the subatomic world. Linear causality may be useful in solving isolated mechanical problems like we do in Newtonian mechanics while solving the pulley problems, all that. But when it comes to the totality of nature, it breaks down because in nature, everything causes everything else. And in nonlinear systems like ecology or weather, we talk about the butterfly effect. Even microscopic fluctuations can produce macro effects, like a simple uh, butterfly can cause a tornado. What we understand from this is that universe works more like an organism than a machine. We can now say that two events which may appear completely unrelated causally can in fact be still related to each other. Now, after establishing that two events need not be consecutive or next to each other as cause and effect, let us come back to our topic of synchronicities. This internal mental state and external physical state are not consecutive to each other. That is, we are not using a linear causality to explain them, but they are instead a part of a complex web of causes and effects in the universe which fall together at a particular time, leading to the generation of synchronicities. Now, the fact that synchronicities occur hints us to the fact that matter and mind are related. The ancients have called it Shiva and Shakti, or yin and yang, or Purusha and Prakriti. Matter and mind are one, emerging from a deeper underlying reality. They are inseparable manifestations of one undivided whole. Now, when you accept this, it makes sense that matter and mind influence each other. Because guess what? They are not really different from each other. They are manifestations of a single underlying reality. Now, let us see how we can connect the Lakshanas to synchronicities. Now, synchronicities tend to often cluster around critical life events like death, creative breakthroughs, or psychological transformations, like what that patient of Dr. Jung had gone through in the example I mentioned. Now, in the context of Lakshanas, the internal state is of the patient who is approaching death, which is a critical life event, and the external physical events naturally that manifest are the inauspicious signs that have been described earlier, like fire being extinguished despite the presence of enough fuel and absence of wind. As we can see, this goes hand in hand with the definition we talked about earlier. the internal mental state influencing the external physical events. It is hard for us modern humans to accept the existence of experiences like synchronicities because we are conditioned to believe that we are somehow different from the universe and not really a part of it. Author and writer Alan Wilson Watts puts it beautifully. We do not come into this world, we come out of it, as leaves from a tree, as the ocean waves, the universe peoples. Every individual is an expression of the whole realm of nature, a unique action of the total universe. And this leads us back to our Advaita Vedanta, which says, Tattvamasi, you are that. You are not different from that unitary reality that exists. And in a world which is so connected, which is one, it is, I believe, possible that matter and mind influence each other, and the synchronicities are the bridge between them. Thank you.